Donald Trump has now been disqualified from being on the primary ballot for the GOP.
They're trying to say that Donald Trump committed an insurrection, which we know is not true. They're trying to say that states can decide if a candidate is eligible for federal office. That is also not true. They're also trying to say that the presidents or potential presidents of the United States are subject to the Insurrection Clause of the 14th Amendment, Section 3, 14th Amendment. None of it actually makes sense. Let's talk about Colorado. No, not weed. So we often hear at the show, we rip on dictators like Xi Jinping, or you just had, Maduro. He just persecuted some political opponents. It looks, though, like the United States. Do we have a leg to stand on with this when you see what we're doing? Are we becoming a banana republic? Genuinely, comment below. I am concerned when I see this. Now, I'm not necessarily concerned about the fallout because I think I know how this likely ends. I'm concerned about the actions that are being taken. So Tuesday night, and we are going to present to you a claim truth segment, all references available at louderwithcrowder.com, why none of this makes sense. None of the left's arguments hold water. And if you disagree with me, I would be happy to read your comments below. And by that, I mean have someone here read them. Tuesday night, the Colorado Supreme Court, 4-3, ruled that President Donald Trump, some people say former president, some people say sitting president. I say sitting president, okay? Yeah, they ruled that he is disqualified from being on the state's 2024 GOP ballot.
The Colorado Supreme Court ruling that Donald Trump has now been disqualified from being on the primary ballot for the GOP. Again, this breaking news out of Colorado. Donald Trump, as we know, was fighting to be able to be on that primary ballot. The Colorado Supreme Court now issuing a 200-something page opinion that we've just got.
Yes, he was fighting. He was toiled and struggled with a 35-point lead. Yeah.
Oh, Colorado.
It took him 200 pages to write it.
I know.
It's an opinion, too, by the way.
Yeah,
right. Well. Yeah. And to be clear, let me just kind of give you a summary of their arguments and then dissect them point by point. They're trying to say that Donald Trump committed an insurrection, which we know is not true. They're trying to say that states can decide if a candidate is eligible for federal office. That is also not true. They're also trying to say that the presidents or potential presidents of the United States are subject to the Insurrection Clause of the 14th Amendment, Section 3, 14th Amendment. None of it actually makes sense. And this is how this is why I think he's also gaining so much ground with black Americans. They believe that the judicial system has been weaponized against them.
Right.
And I will say that there is truth to that. I just don't necessarily believe that it's racial. I think it has been in the past. I think today the concern of the weaponized judicial system is far more about class, and really not just class, wealthy and poor. I mean, elites in power, because you have people who are elites in power who make far less than some other people who they prosecute, who they persecute. And that's just because of your political affiliation or if you happen to speak against the ruling class. Now, of course, not to be outdone as quislings or lackeys for the left, the elite. The left, of course, they were ready to gloat.
We had a whole show planned, my friend, and that is completely upended. This is what we're talking about now. I am in front of, festooned with papers in front of me.
There are very few sort of, magic spells that you cast that make a complex and difficult problem go away.
I was thrilled and proud to be in America.
The opinion by the Colorado Supreme Court.
Is that guy doing something below the camera that we shouldn't be seeing?
Judicial opinion.
I want to see.
Very pleased that the rule of law was vindicated by the Colorado Supreme Court in this way.
It's a cavalcade of weird faces. And I say this as someone, look, I'm no George Clooney, but those are weird.
Yeah, that guy's nose was really distracting from any point he was making.
And he had like reverse bags under his eyes.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I don't know how that would go back. Just show us still. It's
Jamie
like
Raskin?
It's the reverse.
Raskin?
Yeah. Look at this. It's reverse eye bags.
Oh, yeah.
They come out.
They're on top and bottom.
I don't know how that works.
Oh, he looks like a cartoon bad guy. Without the mustache. I can't remember which guy it is.
That's the last time you'll try an insurrection on my watch, Donald Trump.
Yes, that's the guy I'm thinking
of. So let's go through the claims that they're making. But first, let me ask you, why do you think, the why matters, why are they trying so hard to get Donald Trump out of the primary? They always said he was the easiest guy to beat. Yeah. If that's the case, you should remember the conspiracy theory? They want Trump to be on the ticket so they can beat him.
Right.
They're rigging the polls. I don't think it holds water because they wouldn't be trumping up these charges, forgive the pun, because I didn't intend it. So here's a claim that they are making, which is unequivocally false, that Donald Trump led an insurrection.
Colorado, the Supreme Court declaring former President Donald Trump ineligible for the White House under the U.S. Constitution's Insurrection Clause and removed him from the state's primary presidential ballot.
Here's the truth. And it's so obvious that I had to go over this with everyone here today.
Yeah, exactly.
And said, I just want to make sure, right? He has not been charged with insurrection or sedition anywhere. So they're saying that he basically forfeits his right to be on based on a charge that he's never even been hit with.
Oh, much less convicted of.
Exactly.
And no right to defend himself.
Right, exactly. And had the opportunity to go and say, actually, that's wrong, and here's the physical evidence, which will show some of it.
It's like saying, well, actually, you're not allowed to run for president because you're a murderer. Like, what?
Well, we said so.
I said, well, we know you weren't convicted. You say, I was never charged of murder. When did I do murder? And they say, well, we think you could have.
Bullshit.
He hasn't been convicted of any crime. He has not been charged with sedition. He has not been charged with leading an insurrection. By the way, the sham federal election interference case doesn't even happen until March, just to be clear.
Yeah. It doesn't include that charge. He specifically left that charge out.
Yes. When you say he.
Well, Mr. Smith.
Because he knew he couldn't convict of that, or there's no chance of it.
No,
there's
right,
evidence
not.
of it.
So he's like, we're
it's not like he was Teddy Roosevelt running into battle on a horse with a flag in his hand. Like,
yes. And this is how you know there's the court of public opinion. And unfortunately, the courts can be used specifically to manipulate the court of public opinion now. You think that judges, you think that lawyers, you think prosecutors don't know that it would be relevant that he has not been charged? Of course they know that. That's why they want to get this out so that people like Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, whoever is in the newest online podcast will parrot the point. And because of the insurrection clause, so people assume, they fill in that gap and go, well, I guess Donald Trump must have committed an insurrection. Never happened, hasn't been charged with it. The Colorado court has used Donald Trump's January 6th speech as really the justification for its decision. It says, in his speech, which began around noon, President Trump persisted in rejecting the election results, telling his supporters that, quote, we won in a landslide and we will never concede. He urged his supporters to confront this egregious assault on our democracy, to walk down to the Capitol, ellipses, show strength, and that if they did not fight like hell, they would not have a country anymore. Isn't it interesting that they say walk down the Capitol?
Yeah.
And then something, yada, 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 show strength. Well, let me tell you, yada, yada, yada. Here's the part they conveniently left out from President Trump's speech.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections.
And that is from that exact speech, just to be clear. But just to provide some more context, all references available at louderwithcrowder.com, link in the description. If you think we're just pulling one soundbite out of context, here's some more examples.
We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation. I said, peacefully and patriotically. Be peaceful, be patriotic.
It's the day after. It's the day of. Like this is him. The only reason that this became an issue is because of the media and because of a lower court ruling, which basically was being appealed to the Supreme Court of Colorado. And the lower court screwed up in saying that he did engage in insurrection. And that's one of the things they're trying to base this off of. And it's like, again, not charged with it there, even in the lower court. And they can't adjudicate that anyway.
They want you to believe that after that clip, he goes, I had my fingers crossed. No taxis, backsies, all auction free, all the words.
What is he, the guy carrying the 3-foot gallows that were intended for Mike Pence? Like, is he under there like, all right, keep going, guys?
By the way, that was the only weapon they brought.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
The only weapon they brought was
gallows for a minute.
They got from Michael.
Yeah.
Sorry.
0 weapons. Only a couple people died from the actual riots.
Yeah.
The actual rioters, and then a couple police
Only
officers
one person was
who
shot.
Conveniently killed themselves, as Democratic inconveniences do.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And I mean, I just say don't get close to the Clintons. But I don't know. I can't prove that. Here's another claim. They killed people. Now.
That's the truth.
Murdered a guy.
Clinton murdered a guy.
They are claiming, and by they, I mean the left and the media, they're trying to claim that a state court can decide that President Trump committed federal insurrection.
Colorado law allows for these challenges to occur very quickly. We had tried a case, argued an appeal. We, of course, know that the Supreme Court is a likely destination for this decision, and we're ready to present our arguments and optimistic about their review of the Colorado court's careful and thoughtful approach to both the facts and the law here.
Okay, truth. Mr. Retarded Bizarro World Hugh Grant, that makes zero sense. Not at all. So let me provide some context here. Let's keep this in mind, right, Cheryl? You know this well. The 14th Amendment, it's part of the it's part of the Reconstruction Amendments, okay? This was designed to bar former Confederate officials from holding office.
You know those former Confederate officials who literally took up arms and tried to kill everybody they disagreed with in the North to take power, also known as an insurrection. I don't know that any of those guys, those Confederate officials, gave a speech and said, guys, peacefully go to Washington. We want slaves. We want all the slaves.
Right. Also
go to They didn't do that. They picked up rifles and formed militias and an army and had a new capital and a new president put in place.
You mispronounced Democrats.
Yes. My apologies.
So the idea that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is just for each state, and I say this as someone who believes in states' rights, just to be clear. In this case, it's nonsense that they have the right to decide. This would basically mean that, okay, let me give you an example, because it was meant to bar former Confederates, okay?
Right.
It would mean that former Confederate states could have simply loaded their ballots with slave traders.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's what they could have done. No, this is a national election. That's where it's appropriate, where there has to be some kind of national federal oversight, because this is the president of the entire country. The Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, of course, would not apply here. By the way, just to give you some context, too, as it relates to slavery, like the Emancipation Proclamation was written in 63. It only reached Galveston in 65, so not all the slaves were free. They didn't know that they were free.
Right.
But that's only because the carrier pigeon was racist as shit. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, wow.
That changed. And it was a time-traveling racist pigeon.
That's dangerous. That's bred from all kinds of different decades.
If you don't, and this comes down to when people say, I just take all issues on an individual basis. It's, hold on a second. If you don't have a worldview, if you don't have a fundamental understanding, for example, of federalism, of states' rights, of the Constitution, of what actually falls under the legitimate purview of government, certainly electing national office would apply.
Right.
A military would apply. The federal government's role really is limited to keeping us safe from exterior, interior threats, ensuring that everyone is following the law, playing by the rules, and outside of that, keep their whistle in their pocket. This would fall under that, especially when you have rogue judicial systems acting the way they are and violating basic fundamental rights. Here is actually even a noted anti-Trumper, and he's also a part-time janitor between the Rocky Bullwinkle cartoons, John Bolton, explaining why the Colorado court's decision makes no sense.
The idea that 50 different state courts can decide a question involving the highest elective office in the executive branch,
it's a stick-on mustache,
the federal Constitution as to what constitutes an insurrection against the federal government is incoherent. A small amount of money here that the Supreme Court, if it gets to the merits of this, if it has to, will reverse. There's no other logical way you can apply this, and it would sow chaos in elections as far as the eye could see.
What, Joe?
Sorry, it's this guy hates Donald Trump. If there was ever a moment for him to come out and do a victory lap, this would be the time. And even this guy who hates Donald Trump is like, this is stupid, guys. You can't do this.
Yeah,
this
that's
is
what we
moronic.
need.
But then you have people like Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow going out and like, yeah, this is great. I can't believe it. And Jamie, yes, thank you. And Jamie Raskin's going out and doing the same thing. It's like, you have no integrity at all. You don't care about democracy. You just want to win at all costs. That's all it is.
I say, let him do it. I mean, it's horrible.
It's going to make him more popular.
It is going to make him. You thought Teflon Don was bad?
Oh, man.
How about he's immune to armor-piercing bullets, Don? Do you have any idea what you are going to do to Donald Trump? How you are going to build him up when you do this? All it takes is a slight amount, just a very slight amount of education for people to understand the Constitution, what is going on here, and they go, oh, okay, I see what's happening here.
And how egregious this is from the court, and we'll get down to this in a minute. They stayed their own decision because they know it's crap.
Yes, of course.
It isn't going to go into effect.
Well, this brings us to another claim here. Claim is that the Section 3, we kind of touched on it, of the 14th Amendment gives the court the right to remove Trump.
Under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, specifically Section 3 says no officers of the country can have engaged in insurrection. The court essentially found that Trump engaged in insurrection and reversed a lower court ruling that presidents are not subject to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, saying they are subject to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment.
Do you think he's swatting away peckers underneath?
Save it for the Senate room.
Save it for the meeting room. Gives me something to look forward to. Delayed gratification. So here's the truth. This amendment does not apply to Donald Trump at all. Let me actually read you the text from Section 3. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of the president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States, and then it goes on to say, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. So Section 3 disqualifies officers who engage in insurrection. Again, something with which he has never been charged.
And a position he never held.
Right. That's another important point.
Yeah.
The lower court in this case actually defined this, right? They said that President Trump, or at least presidents in general, do not meet the definition of officer. This comes from Courthouse News. We'll make the references available for you. It says, to lump the presidency in with any other civil or military office is odd indeed and very troubling to the court, because this was written by Dickens. The drafters of the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment did not intend to include the president as an officer of the United States.
Right. But, so that's the lower court. Read the rest of what the lower court wrote, and I mentioned it a minute ago. They said, yes, he did participate in insurrection.
Right.
So this court doesn't like Donald Trump. This court found something that wasn't even really a question right here that they could handle, and they said, yeah, this is odd to say that this would even apply to, yeah, but he did insurrection.
Right.
I don't understand what the hell is going on in Colorado. Please make it simple for us to understand.
I understand exactly what's going on.
They're contradicting their own rulings, though.
True.
Well, that's true. Yeah, they do.
That's what they did with Alex Jones. I was talking with Piers Morgan about this, where he goes, well, he was guilty. The judge declared him guilty before it went to a trial.
He was not found.
Yeah, and
guilty.
people try to say, well, they had a default because he didn't provide information. No, he provided all of his financials. He handed over text. With Alex Jones, what they said was, you need to know this context. They said, how much money did you make off of the Sandy Hook conspiracy? 22 minutes over 8,000 hours of broadcast when the suit was filed. 10,000 hours by the time the case actually started, or the hearing, the trial actually started. How do you calculate that? And by the way, even if you calculate it, it certainly wouldn't be many multiples more than your entire business has made throughout its entire history. Take the number. What was their profit during that period of time? 22 minutes, make a percentage. They didn't. The judge declared him guilty because he didn't hand over the financials specifically on how much money was made exactly in relation to Sandy Hook. That would be like someone asking me, how much money did you make here? How much money of Mug Club went to the period of time that you dedicated to, teasing Piers Morgan? I don't know.
It's hard to figure out.
It's more than I remember, probably.
It's more than I remember, probably.
I don't remember most of the teasing.
Pretty sure if we go back through the years, oof. Here's actually even an anti-Trump lawyer, Ty Cobb, summing up why the court, this is an anti-Trump lawyer, the court was wrong.
His name's Ty Cobb.
You can do it again.
Yeah, and he looks like
he looks
like the photo negative of the Rent is Too Damn High guy.
Okay.
The real key issue in this case is Trump an officer of the United States in the context in which that term is used in Article 3 of the 14th Amendment.
Right.
And in 2010, Chief Justice Roberts explained in Free Enterprise that people don't vote for officers of the United States. Article 2, officers of the United States, is commonly understood in the Constitution to refer to appointed officials.
And I understand that it's hard for you to take someone who looks that silly seriously.
And it's kind of like almost Santa Claus. Santa that's losing his hair. I understand the problem.
It's like what I'll do sometimes when I grow my beard out and I go, I'm going to shave it off. But in the interim, I'm going to look very stupid.
Looks like he's playing sheriff at Tombstone.
Yeah.
Later this afternoon or something.
He looks like one of the Confederates that would have tried to keep on the ballot.
Yes. General Cobb.
Yes.
What'd you say?
Yes.
Well, and maybe research can pull this up for me really quickly, but I think they even tried to keep Abraham Lincoln off the ballot.
Research, pull it up for the Confederacy.
They did. I think in maybe 4 or 5 states, something, maybe more than that. Like this kind of thing is insane. And look, I mentioned this just a second ago, but they actually stayed their own judgment. You've got the quote from them right here. These guys know, and listen, challenging it to the Supreme Court doesn't mean he actually has to be heard by the Supreme Court. He literally, all he has to do is go, yeah, we're challenging this, and file the paperwork, and he's still on the ballot.
Yeah.
That's how they wrote this.
Right.
They gave him till, I think, January 4th to be able to actually do that.
This is for the court of public opinion.
Exactly.
They want this story to go out there as in the court of public opinion, which is also really dumb because it's only going to strengthen him. So exactly, that's what happens next, right? Case is going to head to the Supreme Court. This is from the ruling, therefore, to maintain the status quo pending any review by the U.S. Supreme Court. We stay our ruling until January 4th, 2024. If review is sought in the Supreme Court before the stay expires January 4th, 2024, then the stay shall remain in place. The Secretary will continue to be required to include President Trump's name on the 2024 presidential primary ballot until the receipt of any order or mandate from the Supreme Court. So let me just wrap this up for you, okay? Why this is bogus. Yeah. Trump did not commit an insurrection. He hasn't been charged with trying to commit an insurrection at all. And states cannot decide if someone is eligible for federal office, no matter what they try and say as it relates to the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Then the insurrection clause, even if that were the case, does not apply to presidents according to the Colorado's own writings, the Colorado court's own writings. I don't know if it was ruling or if it was just their opinion. It's hard to tell, but either way, it sounds like someone's writing a tale of two cities. Here's why they're doing this, and they just keep shooting themselves in the foot. Donald Trump is leading in the polls, and the left is scared shitless, okay? Now in the RCP average, he's at 3 points over Biden. Wow. In this exact same time, this time of the year in 2019, Biden was up by 4.4. Now, keep in mind, this is keeping outlier polls off the RCP average, but the outlier poll is NBC or ABC Washington Post that had him up, I believe, by 11, and the New York Times poll that had him up, I think, by another 8 or 9. So they're not even consistent, the RCP average, in including polls, because in the past, they haven't always eliminated outliers or their definitions have changed. Right now, if the election were held, it wouldn't even be close. This is all part of the same message. Hey, you're alone. You're isolated. There are more of them than you. There are not.
Yeah, and look, this doesn't even take into account what's about to come down the pipe from the next polls that are coming out. I mean, I can't imagine how his popularity is soaring. The fundraising that he's doing on this already, the free media that he is getting 24/7 right now from this. Yeah. The guy can just basically just sit there.
He should do a rally in Colorado.
Well, we actually do know how they're going to react to future polls. We have a DeLorean here. Nice. And we actually do have a future CNN reaction to polls 3 months from now.
Oh, man. Oh, God. Oh, man. Oh, God. Oh, man. Oh, God. Oh, man.
I think it'll be worse than that.
It would be, them.
Yeah. Oh, them.
Gosh, them.
They. Everywhere.
This bitter woke court. They just wanted to ruin your Christmas. They want to sow division and then blame you for dividing the country and say, can't we find some common ground? Not when you do this. Not when you do this. They can do it to anybody. So don't lose sleep over this. It's not going to stand, and don't let the left gaslight you into believing that somehow you're in some small fringe minority, because the polls show that you're not, that they are, and their ratings are dying. And all these shenanigans, by the way, may make you feel like you're in uncertain times.
Watch Slider with Crowder live Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.